This is probably the guy who made your life miserable back in math class. He's Pythagoras, the dude who somehow got obsessed with right triangles and gave us the formula we all hated in school. Then there's this guy. He's Archimedes, the dude who somehow ended up mapping the geometry of circles. But they weren't the only ones. Like Euclid, the guy who laid the foundation for almost every geometric shape we know today. Or Kepler, the guy who discovered that the planets in our solar system move in elliptical orbits. But here's the problem. All of them were chasing the same thing. They were studying regular shapes. Triangles, circles, squares, they're all neat and symmetrical. Meanwhile, the real world is full of rough, messy, and irregular shapes. Let's take a mountain as an example. Does its irregular shape make it any less perfect than a pyramid? But then, how do we even decide whether something is regular or irregular? Just by looking at its shape? Because what if these shapes that seem so irregular and chaotic aren't random at all? What if they're actually following mathematical rules? Now, to answer that question, let's play a little game called the chaos game. The rules are actually pretty simple. All you need to do is draw 3 dots on a piece of paper, forming a triangle. Then label those 3 dots with the numbers 1 or 2, 3 or 4, and 5 or 6. Now, pick a random point somewhere inside the triangle.
Now what I do is I choose a point at random on the sheet of paper. I'll shut my eyes to do that, and now I'll just wiggle the pen round and dab a point. There it is. That's my starting point.
After that, roll a die. Let's say you roll a 2. Your job is to place a new dot exactly halfway between your random point and the corner labeled 2. Then roll the die again. And once again, place a new dot halfway between your last dot and the corner that matches the number you rolled.
I roll the die. This time it comes up with a 5, so I go halfway from my new point to the big dot marked 5 and 6, and I mark that point on the piece of paper.
Then keep repeating the process. At first, the dots will look completely random, and honestly, they'll seem pretty meaningless. But that's only because you've done it a few times. But what if we let a computer repeat the process millions of times? Well, a pattern begins to emerge. Those random dots slowly begin forming a triangle. Inside that triangle, there's another triangle. And inside that one, there's yet another triangle. Then another, and another. Again and again and again. And that's exactly what happens in nature. The same repeating patterns appear in lightning, tree branches, river systems, even inside your own lungs and blood vessels.
If you look closer and closer, you find greater and greater details. They are very complex shapes which look the same from close by and from far away.
This is what your lungs actually look like when they're opened up. Kind of looks like the branches of a tree, right? And if you look even closer, those branches keep splitting into smaller and smaller ones, until the tiniest branches are less than a millimeter wide. In total, your lungs contain around 30,000 branching airways. Some people even say that if you could spread out the entire surface of your lungs, it would cover about the same area as a pickleball court. But here's the strange part. Why does this same pattern seem to appear everywhere? Is it all just a coincidence? Or does nature keep repeating the same pattern over and over again? As it turns out, that question led to one of the most fascinating discoveries in mathematics. Because in 1975, a mathematician named Benoit Mandelbrot revealed that these patterns we've always thought were completely random can actually be described using mathematical equations. He called these patterns fractals.
I got involved many years ago in the study of this form of complexity, and to my utter amazement, I found traces, very strong traces, I must say, of order in that roughness.
Interestingly, Mandelbrot had a very unusual way of thinking from an early age. While most kids were busy memorizing formulas, he was far more interested in shapes and patterns. That way of thinking eventually led him to IBM. Back then, IBM had one of the most advanced computers in the world, which gave Mandelbrot the opportunity to study a branch of mathematics known as complex dynamical systems, a field that explores how mathematical functions evolve over time. He then turned his attention to something most people simply dismissed as chaos: coastlines, river systems, clouds, and countless other irregular patterns found in nature. His question was surprisingly simple. Were all these chaotic patterns truly random, or were they actually following rules we just didn't understand yet? And to find out, Mandelbrot did something that sounded almost ridiculously simple. He took a mathematical equation, z squared plus c. Then he let a computer run that equation over and over again. At first, the results looked completely random, but after running the same equation millions of times, it eventually produced this astonishing image, the Mandelbrot set.
This is the Mandelbrot Set. It's been called the thumbprint of God.
It's surprisingly complicated and rather beautiful. No one was expecting this to exist in the world of math, but there it is.
What's even more fascinating about the Mandelbrot set is that if you keep zooming in, you'll discover incredibly beautiful and complex patterns. But the deeper you zoom, the more you'll notice that the main pattern keeps showing up over and over again. Inside it, more abstract patterns appear. And inside those patterns, the same main pattern appears again. This keeps happening again and again and again, without end. Exploring the Mandelbrot set almost feels like stepping into another world, right? And that's what led Mandelbrot to a remarkable realization. Even things that seem incredibly complex and chaotic can actually hide an extraordinary order. And all of it came from nothing more than a simple rule we can understand, a mathematical rule.
This shape is of an extraordinary complication. The equation is written there, z goes into z squared plus c. It's so simple, so dry, it's so uninteresting.
When we look at complexities in nature, we tend to ask, where did they come from? But what the mathematics in this whole area is telling us is that very simple rules naturally give rise to very complex objects.
So maybe scientists weren't so wrong when they asked, is God a mathematician? Because with mathematics, we can map and understand so many patterns hidden throughout nature. Could mathematics be the language of the Creator? Well, science doesn't have the answer to that question. But what it does tell us is that Mandelbrot's discovery turned out to be incredibly useful. Today, doctors use fractal geometry to better understand diseases that affect our lungs.
Well, surprisingly enough, amazingly enough, the anatomists had a very poor idea of the structure of the lung until very recently. And I think that my mathematics, surprisingly enough, has been of great help to the surgeons studying lung illnesses.
And it doesn't stop there. Fractals are also used to analyze bacterial growth, study air turbulence, and what's most surprising of all is that fractals can even be used to analyze movements in the stock market.
Well, actually, I started, oddly enough, studying stock market prices. For 50 years, people were sort of poo-pooing because they could do it much easier. But I tell you, at this point, people listen to me.
So after everything we've explored, maybe you're starting to see it too. Fractals aren't just beautiful images. They're one of nature's favorite ways of building incredible complexity from surprisingly simple rules. Take another look at your lungs, the branches of a tree, lightning, river systems, even the blood vessels inside your own body. At first glance, they all seem completely unrelated, but beneath their shapes, they're all following the same principle, a pattern that keeps repeating itself over and over again. And perhaps that's one of the most fascinating things about nature. It's not how unbelievably complex the world is. It's how incredibly simple rules can create complexity that seems almost limitless. Maybe what we've been calling chaos all this time isn't something beyond our understanding. Maybe it's just an order we haven't understood yet.